Okay, there we are. Hopefully you can all hear me right now. Welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. We're back. Let's see. We got some folks in the chat here. I want to see if you can hear me properly. We got a bit of a different setup right now. So let's see. No, I did not get rid of the long intro. Our long intro is specifically Ghoul Gang related, and I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, we got Natalie here at our Andaland. Says that it's coming in good. That's good to hear. Let's go. Okay, so here's how this is going to work, right? So thanks to everybody for popping in. We're back. This is the first stream of 2023, so I appreciate you all being here. I as well want to say thank you to Gargamel Gold, who's in the chat right now. He had reached tonight 15 months concurrent subscription. So we thank him for that. And you can see, you know, his name, he's Gargamel Gold. He's rocking the gold Superpower Broadcasting logo right there. So that's very based. This is very based. I believe, I could be wrong here. I think there are a couple other accounts, but I believe he's the first I've seen actually hit the gold tier, because the gold tier, you have to be sub for at least 12 months. So now we have not been live in 2023 so far. Now we were originally going to be going live a week ago, but I got sick basically, couldn't do it. You can still probably hear my voice, you know, still kind of sick, but it doesn't matter. We're back. We're back. I'm good enough to actually do the show here. Got some new swag. I'm rocking purple right now. You know, it's kind of like the good old days. Kind of like the good old days right now. Got a little bit of hawk drama going on, right? And we'll get to that shortly. Now, I don't do drama streams anymore. I want to make myself clear about that. I don't do drama streams, but when you see my friends, right, we might have to talk about that, right? So we'll get to that in a little bit. So now again, I want to say thank you to everybody for being here in the chat. Like, we haven't gone live in forever, so it's good to see. Now OBS has been having a lot of problems, huge problems, massive problems. It's low quality compared to what it was, where it was at the last time I was live. The last time I was live was in about early November of 2022. It is June 18th, 2023. So to give the viewers here if you're watching later, or you might be out of the lore a little bit, it's been a while since I've been live. I've been very busy. I'm still going to be very busy. I work 7 days a week, right? We'll get to that. We'll get to all of that. But it's good to be back. Thank you for sticking with me. I know a number of people stayed subbed through the hiatus period, and I appreciate that. And I do want to say, and I am noticing here, we've always had a bit of a problem with the chat, where the bottom is always cut off. It's always been like that, no matter what we do. And it's kind of annoying, because it's like you set it up for a certain dimension in Stream Elements, and you transfer that over in the browser source here to the same dimensions, and it's always, the bottom just doesn't work. I don't know. If anybody else out there is a content creator who can get me a fix with that, I would appreciate it. Because it's kind of annoying, because you can alt down to change the dimensions on the top portion. You can't alt up or down on the bottom portion. So we'll get to discussing the important announcement, which is concerning our friend Hawk Arthur. He's the graphics designer of Superpower Broadcasting. He's currently being sued right now under patently false pretenses, blatantly false pretenses, and we will talk about that later. In fact, we actually have a good deal of evidence that specifically exonerates him. Like, it's not even like, oh, well, we don't know who it is, so maybe it could be him. It's like, well, we don't know who it is, but we specifically know it's not him. Yet the plaintiff in this case is specifically pursuing him without evidence, and it's very, very disgusting. And it is important that you stay here, because you will get the context of what's going on, and we will provide you with a link through which you're able to support our friend Hawk Arthur. I want to thank everybody who's already chipped into that campaign. We raised over 350 American dollars for that so far in the last 2 days, and we got to keep pressing on, because this is ridiculous. And again, we will talk about this shortly. So I want to catch up with you all briefly here before we get into that. So where have I been? Well, I've been working. basically. No, I did want to say I do have a little bit of a different setup first. So I got the same mic, but I thought, the old headphones when I'm doing gaming and stuff, it's kind of big and whatnot. I see other streamers that kind of have like these smaller earphones, and so I wanted to try that. They don't stay in the best though, so that's kind of annoying. But it's hopefully we can get used to that. I have a new graphics card here. Now I've got a Ko-Fi campaign in order to raise the money to fund that. The old one that we were operating on, basically not workable. Can't run Fortnite, can't run a lot of basic games anymore. That was the 580, so we scrapped that. We got a 3060 Ti in here now, and that one costs about $700. So if at some point you're able to help me out, I would appreciate that. The priority right now, however, is on raising Arthur's legal defense fund. So that Ko-Fi link, that'll be there for the future. I want you to focus on Hawk Arthur's GoFundMe right now, because that is what is most pressing currently. Now, I want to say as well here, and we'll post a link to it. Now, I did set up a bot before we went live showing the legal fund. Yeah, no, it is there. Stream Elements did comply with this. Sometimes they don't. This one went through on Stream Elements. If you scroll back in the chat, you can see there, help Arthur build his legal fund, and it's got a link directly to it. Now, we will watch the video that's embedded there shortly. We're going to bring on our friends Hawk Arthur and Spooky Nukies, and we're going to talk a little bit about the case that's going against them. Obviously, it's an ongoing legal case, so, there's not going to be as much detail as you might like, but we will talk a bit about it and what you can do to help. Now, I do want to say as well, so yeah, it's been about 7 months, roughly 7 or 8 months since I've been live. It's gone by incredibly quickly. Like, it's just profusely busy around here. And I want to talk a little bit about the change in direction of what I want to do with this channel. We'll talk for about 5 minutes or so regarding this, and then we'll bring on the Hawks. Now, obviously, I'm a foreign policy focused guy. If you follow me on Twitter at Kevin Castley, you'll see a decent focus of my effort in the discourse tends to be oriented around matters concerning foreign policy. And I've always been interested in foreign affairs, but I just, we've gotten to a point where certain domestic matters are not ignorable, and they impinge on our national security. And I'm talking, of course, about infrastructure, housing, and the defense budget itself. Foreign policy concerns, what do we do with our defense budget? What do we do with the assets that we have at our disposal? Who do we interact with? How do we manage our relations? Do we focus more on a unilateral approach? Do we focus more on diplomacy? Do we focus more on multilateralism? There's a lot of different schools of thought concerning that. There's the extent of, to what extent do we help our allies, such as Ukraine right now, without risking World War III? You can go and check out my debate that I did with Suzuki concerning that, where you can kind of get a sense of my worldview, where I take a different approach when we're up against enemies that have thousands of nuclear weapons. We obviously, regardless of how good or evil they might be, we have to approach things more cautiously. And of course, I was opposed to a no-fly zone then. I'm opposed to a no-fly zone now, but I support sending as much aid as feasible to Ukraine. I support, F-16s, all that good stuff for them. I don't support Canadian and U.S. Air Force assets being over there. I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think that's a great way to start a nuclear war. But on the domestic level, though, there's a matter of how much are we going to spend on the military. And in Canada, it's atrocious. It's pathetic. We're at about 1.3 to 1.4%. In America, it's not much better. It's at about 3.2 to 3.3%. These are dismal numbers. Back in the old Cold War in the 1980s, we were sitting at about 6 to 8%, at least in the United States. So to give you a sense, the U.S. is spending about today's equivalent about $2 trillion a year. Right now, it's about $800 billion. It's not sufficient. There was only one Cold War, one primary enemy then. Now we have Russia and China. Back then, China was on our side. Now they're with Russia. So how does it make any sense to spend half when we have twice as many enemies? Doesn't make any sense. So we need to boost our defense spending. Infrastructure is crucially important, and I want to focus here at the channel. And I did say that at about 9:45 we would be discussing the GoFundMe. I'm going to push that back a few minutes. I want to get through this first. In terms of the course of the direction of this channel, you're going to focus more on domestic issues. You'll do a little bit of culture war stuff. No, I'm not as concerned about the culture war for the main reason that progressives are going to win. Like the conservatives of 30 years from now will have the progressive position on trans rights. Like we're winning on that. There's not that much of an issue to discuss there. The only kind of impediments are to do with the Supreme Court in the United States. That you might be looking at delaying things by like 20 to 30 years. But again, they're going to be so far out of sync from where the public is, even in 10 years, that it's an inevitable victory for us. The only question concerning conservatives is how long can they delay that victory? That's really all that it comes down to. There's not a question of who's going to win. It's when are we going to win? That's to do with the culture war. The housing crisis, particularly in Canada, is dismal, and I've resolved to get the hell out of the area in which I live, which is one of the most expensive parts of the world to live in. Now you might say it's incredibly stupid to live here. I agree it's stupid to live here. I was born here. There's that old line from that Taylor Swift song, "You're on your own, kid." I didn't choose this town. I dream of getting out. That's basically where I'm at. It's like you don't always pick the city that you live in, right? And I'm getting the hell out of here because things are about to get really bad. Like you think it's bad now where you have to work like 60 to 80 hours a week to eat and get by. In 3 years, rents are going to be double, triple potentially. And then what you do? What you do when 80 hours isn't enough? What do you do? Like we got to get the hell out, basically. And I'm entirely sick of this stupid rat race that's gone on in this country. Basically, my country's been sold off over the last 10, 15 years, especially. And there's no sense of loyalty or allegiance by our political establishment. It's just, how can we maximize our own equity at the expense of the future generation so that we can cash out? That's basically it. And we're going to lose to China if we keep that up. We're going to lose to China. We're going to lose to Egypt. We're going to lose to Malaysia. We're going to lose to so many of these countries that are actually investing in building substantial new housing for their populations, new cities, new housing, etc. So I want to direct a lot of my content going forward to addressing that, because we're just not going to win the Cold War if our country's for sale for short-term profit. It's that simple. We need to have long-term focus in order to compete with the CCP. Because I'll tell you this, the CCP, when they build these planned cities that, the mainstream media in the West, they like to laugh at. They built 200 cities and most of them are uninhabited or 5% occupied or whatever. It's like, yeah, they didn't build those cities to be occupied overnight. They're thinking 500 years down the road. Our leaders can't think 3 years down the road. And that's embarrassing because we're going to lose a generation at this rate. And that's going to have a profound effect on our ability, not just to actually stay in the game, but to even exist as an outpost at that point. Like we're basically handing the world over to China unless we resolve to conduct all essential product manufacturing in our country, and that we resolve to develop the North, develop the Arctic, compete with Russia, build a fleet of icebreakers, nuclear icebreakers, build an aircraft carrier fleet, and I would argue expand the Canadian Army up to 1 million soldiers. That's what we need to be focused on. We need to build the cities of the future. We need to build the army of the future. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's what a lot of what we're going to be focused on. It does touch, of course, on foreign policy, and I will be talking about foreign policy matters. And I will want to say on this as well, specifically on matters of foreign policy, we focused a lot on Ukraine last year. There's still going to be a focus on Ukraine. What the Russian government has done there is atrocious. We're watching, human rights abuses, war crimes, etc., unfolding in real time. Our friend of the channel, Dylan Burns, is over there right now in eastern Ukraine. He's been documenting multiple war crimes. His work that he's done on his 2 channels on YouTube, and he has his channel on Twitch, of course, is excellent. And it doesn't matter whatever disagreements or whatnot we've had with him in the past. There's been drama, etc. It doesn't matter. He's risking his life to expose the brutality of the Rashist army. And I want everybody who's here right now, if you haven't already, you need to go and subscribe to Dylan Burns Live. You need to go and subscribe to Dylan Burns TV on YouTube. And you needed to subscribe to his Twitch channel. His income has been threatened by YouTube, actually, as a matter of his coverage of this stuff. And that's grotesque. And he's doing important work, and he's on the ground there. And I mean, I watch the stuff that he puts out. I watch the stuff that CNN puts out. I watch, DW News, all these other news stuff. And it's like, okay, well, a lot of his coverage is as important as what they're doing. Some of it's better than what they're doing. A lot of CNN anchors largely stay around Kyiv and cover events in the country from Kyiv. Well, Dylan Burns is in eastern Ukraine. He's gone to the front line multiple times. Is almost killed in Mykolaiv, for example. So he's a Chad. He's an absolute Chad. And I want to say, it's thanks to the work of people such as him that they're doing a better job covering Ukraine than I could ever do. I'm a dude in an apartment in Canada. What am I going to do? What am I going to offer? But what I will say is that I want to focus on North Korea. North Korea has gone under the radar through a lot of this. Now, of course, North Korea is supporting the Russian army in terms of supplying their artillery, right? Like, think about how embarrassing that is for Russia. We were told all these years that Russia, they had this great industrial capacity, that they could sustain a war effort against all of NATO and win. Well, no, they ran out of artillery shells, and so North Korea is helping them out right now. But I mean, Kim Jong-un, he's embarrassed for Putin. He's embarrassed for Putin. Putin couldn't even take a town 100 kilometers from his own border without literally losing more of his soldiers than the population of the town. The Russians lost about 100,000 people to take Bakhmut. Bakhmut was a population of 70,000 people. How is that efficient? It's a joke. China and North Korea are laughing at Russia, even if they're in theory supporting them, even if materially North Korea is supporting them. They know it's a joke. Putin's not respected anymore. We don't respect Putin. Even his fellow autocrats don't respect him. And Russia has to lose this thing, and we need to support Ukraine as much as possible. Again, without starting a nuclear war with Russia, because the one thing that Russia does have is the stuff that they can never use, or it's the end of the world for them at least. And it'll take us a long time to rebuild. And so we don't really want to go down that route. I want to say, North Korea has gone under the radar throughout this time, and they are a different country than they were in the 1990s. They're nothing like they were in the 1990s. Western foreign policy with regards to them is the same naive, weak, feckless approach as it was in the 90s. North Korean policy is as Machiavellian as it was in the 90s. The difference is their nukes back then, well, they didn't have nukes back then, but their missiles back then could reach Japan, maybe, and South Korea. Now they can reach Florida and beyond, basically everywhere except for Uruguay. They have the largest and longest range rolled mobile missiles in the world. America has none. Americas are stationary in silos in Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota. North Korea's, I hear people saying, why don't we hit their silos? There's no silos. They're all rolled mobile. So we're going to talk about North Korea tomorrow night or the next night, depending. Right, we're not going to be back to daily streaming until I get out of this town, but we are going to be focusing on and reviewing the latest military parade in North Korea, because it's nothing like the old parades that you would see that look kind of like something from the 1940s or something. North Korea has gone 60 years ahead in 15 years in terms of their technology, and so we need to talk about it. Anyway. What I would say as well, just before we get into bringing on Spooky and Arthur, is thank you to everybody who was subscribed to this channel during the hiatus period. I think there were 5 or 6 people, the real ones, who kept up the subscription through it. I appreciate that. It's not for nothing. As we can see from Gargamel, you get your sub badge increase, right? So everybody else is like, okay, well, I'll be back when he returns. Well, okay, that's cool. If you come back, that's awesome. You'll get your sub badge growth, you'll get to accrue points. But the people that stayed in all that time, they're gonna have 8 months higher badge prestige. So those folks are pretty based. So and thank you all for being here right now. I was gonna say, I don't know what's going on with OBS. Last night we tried to go live. I had to tinker with it for about an hour and a half just to get it to broadcast. Numerous issues. It's a real pain. Now we're live, but it actually does not show me a viewer count right now. I can see my stream title, I can see the chat, but I don't know how many people there are here. I actually can't see that. I used to be able to see that perfectly fine. So I don't know what's going on right now. I have no idea what's going on right now with this, and it's embarrassing from the OBS standpoint. I don't know what they've done. I don't know. I don't know how after 7 or 8 months their software got worse. Normally, you'd like to see things patched. You'd like to see technical improvements. I mean, they have done updates. Says I have 10 viewers. Well, that's good. Anyway, I'm still kind of sick, but thank you for being here all right now. So 10 viewers on my end. Okay, well, thank you. So 10 or 11. Okay, that's good. That's good. That's where about we would have been before anyway, so it's good to see the viewership still here. We're going to work on getting that up, but again, it's very hard to focus on honing in your craft and streaming when, you know, just the simple cost of basic goods in this area is just out of control. I mean, to give you a sense of how bad things are in Canada, our average Canadian makes about $34,000 a year. Average home in Canada is coming up on $1 million a year. So, you know, normally your home's supposed to be 3 times what you make. It's about 30 times in Canada, to give you a sense of that. And why is that? Well, for the longest time, you were some rich oligarch from China or something. You got a bunch of money through bribes and stuff with the Communist Party. You just come over here and buy up assets. And what's a Canadian dude working at Home Depot or working at A&W going to do to compete with that? How are you going to compete with this Communist Party representative who managed to get $1 million in bribes in 10 years? How are you going to compete with that? You're not, basically. And so, you know, there's an old line from Vosh from a couple months back that kind of resonated with me. And I want to close on this one before we get into the details of the lawsuit. Vosh said, you know, Eastern Europe, and he was talking about Ukraine and Russia and everything. He said, you know, Eastern Europe and Poland, they're kind of where we're at, but in hyperspeed. They've kind of gone through a lot of the growing pains that we're going through now. They dealt with that in the 90s. They had their like hyper free market oligarchs, whole countries for sale. No allegiance, no loyalty by any of the politicians. The country just sell, get as much money for myself as possible and cash out, that sort of thing. But Eastern Europe, they went through that. There's still some problems with oligarchs, but you look at Czechia, you look at Ukraine, you look at Poland. These are like the headquarters of democracy in the world. These are vibrant, open societies. These are societies where, you know, corruption has largely been stamped out, or at least they're working on it. Liberalism is strong. There's a strong sense of national pride. There's a strong sense that we're going to resist the Russians. And there's a strong sense that of this social contract of all of the compatriots of the country as basically having dignity. We don't have that in Canada. We don't really have that in the US. It's just a free-for-all. It's just me grab the assets as much as possible, and the long-run viability of the country be damned. We need to get through those growing pains. We need to establish a new social contract through which the dignity of the workers of our countries can be restored. Otherwise, we're just going to lose. China's just going to win. It's that simple. It's that simple. It'll be China versus Eastern Europe, and North America will just be a corrupt oligarchy, basically. You know, vassal states, essentially. It'll be Eastern Europe as the center of democracy, and it'll be China as the center of autocracy, and they'll fight it out. We'll just be like a third world outpost with a bunch of super rich people and then masses of basically homeless people. That's basically it. Now, we need to get up to where, you know, Czechia and Poland and whatnot have got to, where, you know, they're now investing in their defense heavily. They've seen the consequences of treating their country as just a garage sale, and they're done with that, but we're not, and that's a problem. And we need to get some national unity back soon, you know. And so I'm going to end things here with regards to just catching up. So thank you everybody for being here. We're going to bring on we're going to bring on our friends Hawk Arthur, who is currently being sued under the most blatantly false pretenses. And I don't just say that willy-nilly. What you're about to see will hark clear and resonate with absolute clarity to everybody watching this. And I suggest you send this around to everybody, basically. That this has to be one of the most unfounded lawsuits in this decade so far. I mean, you look at Legal Eagle, you look at these channels that cover lawsuits and stuff, even with the relatively frivolous ones, they'll make a point about how, well, you know, there was some issue with the label where maybe the plaintiff had a point and that sort of stuff. Here, there's literally evidence that he didn't do it. And the one who is suing him continues with it in spite of that evidence, despite him. And we're going to bring on here Spooky Nukies and Hawk Arthur. So we will open up the...
Hello, everyone. Kevin Castley here. 3 years ago, I started Superpower Broadcasting because I was sick and tired of living in the era of cringe, where everyone from the far right to the far left is united against the liberal world, against democracy, against freedom. And so here I am making videos calling out all of the fringe and cringe lunatics and standing up for the liberal world order and all the values that we care about. So if you appreciate what I do, definitely consider joining my Patreon. That's patreon.com/superpower broadcasting. That's the best way that you can support me and help cover the costs of all that goes into running this channel, as well as eventually my personal expenses. Once we hit $3,000 a month, I'll be able to do this full time, and we will have a lot more content. As it stands right now, patrons help power daily content as it is, and I appreciate all of your support.